If you are not subscribed to the channel here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, please do so, especially as we enter a very busy basketball season, both the men's and women's teams kicking off their seasons here. Women's exhibitions on Wednesday night. We just had a men's exhibition last Friday, and then the regular season start next week. And of course, football coverage around the clock. Also hit the thumbs up button on this video. Any gesture of support you can give, even if you can't make a physical donation, which you're able to do so in our description, any gesture of support is appreciated. But be sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you in advance. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the news that came out from Kirk Ferentz's press conference today. And no, not regarding Cade McNamara, but some news that had kind of been circulating, rumored here for at least the last week regarding quarterback James Resar. Here's a young man that came in from Bishop High School down in Florida, Bishop Kenny in Jacksonville to be exact, and he was part of the 2024 class. In fact, he just got here this summer, did not enroll early. We watched him at Kids Day, and he was still playing quarterback at the time. But as you see from the banner here on the screen, according to Kirk Ferentz today, he has moved to wide receiver, but is not available to fill in at quarterback because of an injury, a non-contact injury that he sustained here recently. So what to take away from that information from Kirk Ferentz? Again, this had been rumored at least for the last week. And as a reminder, if you don't remember much about James Resar, I'll throw a little video up here in the corner. If you click the tab up here in the corner, you can watch my breakdown from a couple of years ago when James initially committed to Iowa. If you recall, he committed the day after Iowa lost at home to Iowa State 10-7. That was in the midst of one of Iowa's worst offensive starts to a season in the history of the program. And James Resar commits to play quarterback the very next day. He had been in Iowa City for that game. And he's a 6'4" guy, track star in high school. In fact, if you look at his 247 bio, it brings out how he was a really good 100-meter guy in high school. In fact, he's got verified times of 10.67, 10.86, 10.86, 10.88, 10.90, 10.95, 10.98, and 10.99. And that 10.67 score obviously pops off the screen. Bit of a tailwind there, but not so significant that takes much away from what that number actually is. He went 2.272 in the 200 and 56.09 in the 400. I think the 100-meter dash is probably the best one as it relates to football speed and potential speed as a wideout. Because yes, as you see on the screen, he has moved to receiver. And this caught a lot of people by surprise today because people liked this kid when he committed to Iowa. I remember people saying, hey, it's not going to be Marco Lainez, the quarterback of the future. It's this kid. He's big, but man, he's got great elite speed. Didn't have the biggest arm coming out of high school, but you think, hey, that can develop. He obviously is a mobile guy, but I think that's part of the reason he's making the switch because of that speed, one would have to think. And I think my biggest takeaway, without really knowing what's been going on behind closed doors, I didn't see anything at Kids Day that made me think he was better suited at one position or the other. But if there's anybody that's going to be able to evaluate the future of a player, potential future of a player at either quarterback and or receiver, it would be Tim Lester, the former quarterback's coach, and a guy who's got so much pedigree as it relates to basically getting receivers ready for the next level. We've already seen some positive results with that wide receiver room, not to take anything away from John Budmeyer, but you have to think the betterment in performance and production out of that room this year in part has to be due to the addition of Tim Lester. But again, James Resar was recruited as a quarterback to a number of places. Indiana offered, Georgia Tech offered, and as it relates to his ability to run, totaled 520 rushing yards during his junior year, actually broke his leg during high school, and now is dealing with this non-contact injury. So I understand why people are a little frustrated. This shows that there's no development at Iowa at the quarterback position. I heard that explanation and that claim here today following the news. I think pump the brakes on that a little bit. I know people have this perception of who they think the next guy is going to be, and maybe it's Jimmy Sullivan, the quarterback coming in from Indiana. But let's not forget, Tim Lester did not recruit James Resar to Iowa. And who was the quarterback's coach at the time? It was Brian Ferentz. So, not saying James Resar could not have played quarterback, but I think I'll trust Tim Lester's ability to evaluate a kid and place him at the best position for him to succeed long term. And the fact that Iowa made this decision so early in his career, didn't even wait a full football season before moving him to receiver, could mean they think he's got no future at quarterback, or maybe it's a combination of that and some cautious optimism about his future at wide receiver. Or maybe they're real excited about what he could do at receiver. I mean, 10.67, 10.7, 10.8, those are elite 100-meter times. And who knows what his hands are like. And it's unfortunate that he's dealing with the non-contact injury. But he'll have an opportunity to see the field earlier as a receiver than he would at quarterback, even though Cade McNamara is graduating. So this is intriguing. They got a couple of big guys now in that room, and Reese Vanderzee and James Resar. And what about Dayton Howard, who's 6'5", who caught a touchdown here a few weeks ago? So that's the news. Don't panic about it. It is what it is. You got a guy in Tim Lester who understands how to put the best players in position to succeed on offense, specifically skill positions, and Iowa hasn't had that in some time. So let's see how this all plays out. What's going to be very interesting is if something happens to Sullivan Saturday, and we sure hope not, we sure hope that does not happen, Marco Lainez will be thrown into the 4, and then it's Jackson Stratton, and they don't really have anybody after that. Kirk Ferentz kind of alluded to maybe a player who played quarterback in high school being a third option, but you hope that doesn't have to happen. You hope that Sullivan can stay healthy. And Marco Lainez hopefully would be ready to go if he needed to under the lights at Kinnick Stadium. Wouldn't that be an audition for the second-year player out of New Jersey? But that's the news on James Resar, the former 2024 quarterback recruit who is now moved to receiver on the Iowa roster. Appreciate you tuning in, folks. I will be publishing an Iowa men's basketball season preview show with Coach Gary Close Wednesday, so stay tuned. And we've got post-game coverage after the women's exhibition on Wednesday evening. All that coming up and more right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm.